Hello and welcome back to Culinary Haven. Today we're making one of the most popular British desserts, Bakewell Tart. I'm making it for a friend, and if you have someone that you would like to make a delicious treat for, I'll show you how I do it. Let's begin. To make the Bakewell Tart, we'll need, for the crust, 150 grams of plain flour, 125 grams of butter, very cold, cubed, half a teaspoon of salt, and a couple of tablespoons of very cold water, and 1 tablespoon of icing sugar. And for the filling, 4 eggs, 200 grams of ground almonds, 200 grams of sugar, 60 grams or 4 tablespoons of semolina, 250 grams of raspberry jam, 125 grams of very soft butter, almost melted but not quite, 1 teaspoon of almond extract, 1 teaspoon of orange zest, and about 30 grams or so of almond flakes. You can use fresh orange, just grate it. I always have orange zest in the freezer. I'm going to use that. And we'll start with preparing the crust. We'll prepare the crust in the food processor. Flour in 150 grams, half a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of icing sugar, and just whiz it together for a few seconds. Now we're adding the butter, very cold, cubed, 125 grams of butter. And now process it for about 5 to 10 seconds until the mixture resembles breadcrumbs. Enough. See, like so. The blade of the food processor chopped the butter quite finely and mix it with the flour, and that's what we're looking for. And now we're going to add water, 1 tablespoon at a time. You may need 1, you may need 2, but not more than that. And pulse or process the dough until you see that it clumps together, and stop then. That's enough. That's it. 2 tablespoons of water. And some people say that you have to just pulse it very short period of time, like 1 or 2 seconds. I don't see the reason for that. There's nothing wrong with just processing it until you actually see that the dough starts to clump together. And this dough will be very light and flaky and buttery and will not be tough. Try it and you will see it for yourself. This dough is enough to fill the 23 centimeter in diameter tart tin, which is 9 inches. And it is ready to roll out right now. If the dough is chilled enough with the cold butter and cold water, you can actually roll it out right now and fill the tin. If it's a little bit soft, you can wrap it and put it in the fridge for 20 minutes or so, just to firm up a little bit. We'll see. We'll flour the worktop, put it all out. Crumbly, but it's absolutely fine. It's perfect actually. Put it together into a sort of disc shape, and right now I can tell that it's firm enough and cold enough to actually do it without chilling it. Rolling pin, flour it and roll it out into a circle of 23 in diameter, about 1 inch the sides, so it's 5 centimeters, it's about 28 centimeters in diameter. Make sure that the surface is well floured. Make sure that the rolling pin, your hands, and the surface is well floured. Now, we take a rolling pin and just roll the dough up, and I have some excess flour which will just brush off. Lower the dough inside and very gently let it sit in. Very little. Fold the edge a little bit just to fit your tin, and just with your fingers crimp the edges. So like this. This is all that's left. That's the tiny piece of scraps, which is fine. You can live with that. If you are not very confident and you feel that the dough is kind of soft, just put it in the fridge for 20 minutes before you roll it out. And now we're going to place the tart tin into the freezer for 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, the dough chilled very nicely, very, very cold. And now we're going to blind bake it. A piece of tin foil, shiny side onto the dough. Just push it. Now you don't need to worry, you will not damage the dough, it's frozen solid. Ceramic beans or any beans you can use, actually just dried peas or beans or whatever you have in the house. I'm using ceramic beans. And now we're going to bake it in the preheated to 180 degrees Celsius oven for 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, we're taking the tart out of the oven and remove the tin foil and the beans. And now we're going to put it back into the oven for just 5 minutes to dry and crisp up a little bit. And we have 5 minutes to prepare the filling. In that same food processor, I didn't even wash it, don't need to. The butter, soft butter, sugar. Process it together until it's nice and fluffy. Now we'll add the eggs. Mix it all together. Scrape the sides that everything is mixed together really well, and continue. Nice. And now with the motor running, we'll through this chute we'll add the semolina. Next we'll add the orange zest, either fresh or frozen. Prefer frozen, always have it handy. Mix it together. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of almond extract, and finally the almonds, ground almonds, and mix it just until combined. Our filling is ready. The raspberry jam goes on the bottom of the tart, and then the filling on top. 5 minutes. So now our tart shell is partially baked and is firmed up, but it's not, of course, ready yet. Now we're going to put the layer of the jam on the bottom. Just spread it with an offset spatula. 250 grams of jam sounds like a lot, but jam is heavy and you will only have a very thin layer of jam on each slice of the tart. Nice and even, and on top of that we'll pour our filling. We'll take the blade out of the food processor and then pour it all on top of the jam. There, spread it evenly around the edges. Now we're going to place the tart back in the preheated to 180 degrees Celsius oven for 15 minutes. Then we'll take it out, sprinkle the flaked almonds on top, and bake another 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, the tart is partially baked. Now we're going to sprinkle with almonds and put it back. The top of the tart is already set, so we're going to brush it quickly with some cold water and sprinkle the almonds all over the tart so that they stick. And now back in the oven for another 15 minutes. Look at that! It's ready and it's absolutely gorgeous. And now we're going to sprinkle it with some icing sugar and let it cool completely in the tin before we unmold and slice it. Thank you for watching this episode of Culinary Haven, and until next time, bye!